Next episode of the Treypreneur Show, a very special guest, Andrew, as I like to refer to him as Andrew OG, because he is the OG of plumbing, and he's got tons of advice. No matter where you are in your journey in the trades, whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, electrical, tile, roofing, you name it, there's takeaways. There's gold in this episode. I'm Patrick Somers, your host, the Treypreneur Show. I've got my co-host, Tanya Priest. Welcome back, Tanya.
Thank you. Hi, everybody.
And then we got Andrew.
Oh, thank you. Happy to be here.
We're glad to have you here, Andrew. And as you may tell from the video, if you're watching, if you're just listening, pay attention because he is decked out in general air conditioning, plumbing, and electric attire. And why is that?
Well, this is where my career has taken me and where I'm happy to be.
All right.
Right here at General Air and Plumbing.
And we're thrilled to have him. But this is where he's at now, but you've got a pretty long history to get to this place, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I wasn't always planning on being a plumber, but sometimes the trades find you and then you get good at them, or at least you persevere through them, and then you end up in a place you don't regret.
So let's go back to, you didn't always plan on being a plumber.
No.
What got you into the plumbing trades?
I mean, I kind of always, I was really good at school, but I didn't really like the effort that school took. And eventually I just kind of ended up where I needed a job. And so I started working, and where I was at in the high desert, I got into landscaping, and I've always been a really entrepreneurial person. So once I learned how to landscape a little bit, I started a landscaping company, but I was young. So as soon as I got a couple $1,000s in my pocket, I was off for 2 weeks. And you don't retain customers well by not working. So after that, I kind of got into roofing, and God bless the roofers, but that's hot work. And waking up and not knowing if I was going to work that day wasn't for me. And then I met my buddy John, and he was just getting into plumbing, and I'd known John a long time, and he got me a shot at it. And so it started out in the ditches, building houses. That's all we did, build houses for about the first 6 years of my career. Track homes, what we called chicken coop apartments. So lots of repetition, a lot of time spent. And that's such an important part, because once you can do things in repetition and learn production, and you see what's behind the walls, what's under the ground, it makes your ability to understand when you walk into any home, kind of what you're getting into and what you may encounter even before you open up the walls or get too involved. So fell into it.
And I think a lot of people, when I was younger, I fell into the trades, actually plumbing, and landscaping. I landscaped too. Company called Nature's Way. And then I fell out of it, and I'm grateful I fell back into it. But along that journey, especially the early years, right? Were there days that you were like, this is temporary, I'm going to get out of this? Or did you kind of know that this was, you had found home?
Well, I'd never seen money like that, honestly. And it wasn't easy by any means, but I'm from I don't know if it's a generational thing or just the way that I was raised, is that you kind of sought out very difficult things and you wanted to prove that you could do it. And especially when you were in a situation with people you already knew, and you're in like your community, you wanted to I'm going to make it here until I decide I want to do something else. I never wanted to have my card punched by somebody else saying that we don't need you. I always wanted to be an asset. And that really drove me to embrace the tough days. And that's how you start as a plumber. You're a human backhoe. That's what you do. Jackhammer for hours, wherever they tell you to.
It's funny you say that, because when I said I plumbed at one point, so I was landscaping, and then in high school, I'd landscape in the summer, and I was going to high school. So my extent of plumbing was, I was like the gopher for my buddy's dad, who started a plumbing company, very successful company now on the East Coast, just outside Philadelphia. But this may surprise some people, but I get suspended every now and then from school. And so when I get suspended, his dad, my buddy's dad, was the first call I'd make. And he usually had a trench for me to dig, because I was cheaper
Let's start.
and at that age, almost as fast as a backhoe, right? Believe it or not. I mean, you can dig when you're younger, and that's a little bit of hyperbole, but that was my extent of plumbing. But yeah, it was a lot of digging. I became I was like a real gopher. I didn't just go for the supplies. I dug holes and trenches and whatnot. But then I got out of it, and of course now kind of full circle. While I'm not a plumber, we certainly do plumbing, and it's a trade that I get more and more respect for. I'm an HVAC guy, right? And so as you learn plumbing, I think that one of the advantages to HVAC, there's a lot of technology and this and that, but there's a lot of universal stuff, right? And once you kind of get it down, you get it down. And I guess maybe that's the same for plumbing in a lot of ways. But I mean, literally, you can go into a home and each bathroom or each sink can have different faucets.
Oftentimes.
Yeah, which then have different guts and whatnot, right? So then you also owned your own business at one time.
Yeah. I did. So for the same company I started with, while we were building houses, we went right into the recession in 2008. So I went from making what I considered a lot of money every week to not very much money every 2 weeks. The company basically disbanded. Everybody went their separate way looking for work. I stuck around, and then we went right into service remodels, and I started having to learn how to do all of the estimating, all the purchasing, all the quoting, and then go do all the work also, because you couldn't expand. We couldn't really afford any help. And so I just took it upon myself to keep going. And then I started seeing the money come back. And so it was a worthwhile endeavor, but tough times.
Yeah. Yep. But you know what they say, is something like tough times make tough people. Right. And there's a lot of truth to that. Right. Yeah. There's days that in my journey that, the only way I make it through certain things sometimes is because I've made it through tough times before. And what you end up learning is you are resilient. Yep. And that's, that saying is a little, so I used to think that saying like that which does not kill us only makes us stronger was great to hang on your wall or something. But the reality is there's a lot of truth to that. Yeah. So now you're running a department. Mm-hmm. All right. And you've have experience doing that. And I got to say, you came in and you were somebody that I could say, here's what I envision, go. Yep. And you may disagree with this, but I feel I'm pretty hands off with you. Because, here's a lesson. If you're somebody that's trying to get into management leadership, or you're trying to bring people in to leadership roles to run things for you. One, you got to empower them and trust them. But on the other hand, that trust comes from that person doing things that build trust and doing the right things. And you have to know when they know and when you have to step in and guide them. And with you, I think you've been through enough and have experienced enough. Like you now have me. You're actually building a vision for me. You've actually taken my vision, and now you come back and you expand on my vision.
Yeah. It's kind of like I just stopped what I was doing and then moved in and continued on the journey that I was on already. And I'm happy to do so. Just to get back to where I was at is that when I was just doing everything by myself, eventually it got to a point where you just have to figure out when you're going to leave. And that took me about 10 years. And then I went off on my own. A lot of the customer base followed me, and they just wanted me to work for them. And so I started in my garage. I mean, you know that story where people start in a garage. Yeah. So I bought a moving van, and this is a beat up moving van. So you get the moving van, you pack our few belongings in it, and then we launch. And in 4 years, I had a building. I had multiple trucks. I brought on a lot of guys, and I hand trained all them. But it started where, you don't finish the job. You're there till 11, 12 o'clock at night. We don't get paid. And I've been fortunate enough to bring a couple of those guys with me here. And we just kind of are continuing the journey that we started.
Well, and what I've noticed, and my son works for you, right? And I make clear to my son, like, you don't work for me. right? You and I made clear to Andrew, like, you discipline him, you fire him, and you've written him up before.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, there's no, and that's another thing. If you've got family in the business, they are not family when they're at work. Yeah, you love them and you oversee them, but if you really love them, you got to be hands off. And if you've done things right and you have the right leadership, they'll kind of continue to make sure that they're further developed. And I look at the team that you have, and some of them are new guys that are apprentices. You have experienced guys, but overall, some younger guys. And your management styles is similar to mine, right?
It is.
Yeah, and you're more like a coach. You're more like a coach that sometimes believes in your players more than the players at times believe in themselves. And some, in my experience, especially having coaches like that, they got the best out of me, but sometimes it was ugly, because you had to hear things and it's not like, it's not rainbows and sunshine. But what I notice is your guys respond really well to that.
Well, it's when you're building the culture of what you would expect for the results you're looking for, you can't sugarcoat things. Like if we're talking about growing, there's a certain expectation that they're going to be required to grow into. And so there's no reason to spin our wheels, making it a soft transition when you're going to be expected to be consistent. And part of the reason why you have to write people up and have a discipline structure is because you're trusting them to be as much of a teammate to everyone else as everyone else is going to be to them. Because when it comes down to it, it takes a team. You could have a rock star plumber, but there's going to be positions you put them in. They're not doing that by themselves. And so they have to have dependable help also. So when you put that much responsibility, it's shared equally among the group. And so you have to hold everybody to the same standards, whether it's the brand new guy who we're just bringing in. You're coming into the same standards that I'm holding the guy who's been doing it for 31 years. And you can't be too harsh on them, but you have to let them know that like consistency is, you may have a bad day, but you leave that in the car before you come in here. And when it gets really bad, you come to me separately and then we'll work something out. But for the most part, you got to be able to perform no matter what the normal adversity is, I'll say.
Well, and I will tell you, and this goes to leadership and the individuals, the character of the individuals you have, and then the development of them is what I look at how much somebody invests in themselves, right? Whether it's watching videos, reading books, taking classes, interacting with others that know more than them, teaching, mentoring others that know less than them. How are they here early? Will they stay late? Those are the type of things. And for the trades, the other big one is, are they buying tools? Are they investing in themselves? And one of the things that made me the happiest is we went to the plumbing show out here, the PHCC, I believe. We go to this show, all right? And we get the message out that, okay, hey, listen, we're going to be wrapping up. So let's meet in like this promenade or courtyard or whatever the hell it was. And I'm out there and I'm just chilling, waiting. And all of a sudden, I wish I had it on video and it was slow-mo, because it's like the doors come open and here come the crew, the guys, and they are carrying and dragging behind them so many tools and they bought them all, right? Because there's fantastic deals there. But I thought for a minute, I'm like, holy shit, I'm in a heist. This is like, I got to go get the van. I'm like, I must be the getaway driver. And these guys, like, it's like they stole all this shit. I'm like, nobody buys this much stuff. And so it was one of those moments where it was just really cool to see the investment everybody made in themselves. And then to listen to them talk, geeking out on the tools and the battery pack and this and that. And so that was really cool. And that told me a lot about that department and those individuals and what was important to them. And to me, it goes back to leadership, right? That goes back to leadership. Yes, self-leadership, like me leadership, but also we leadership, you leading yourself as an individual, but also having that right leadership and role model to understand what it takes to get to that next level. So I believe you do a great job at that. Now, along this journey, you've got to have some do-overs, or if I could do it differently, coming up.
Question.
Do you have any of those?
Oh, so many. Yeah, you don't really find success without probably 2 or 3 times as many failures in front of it. And everything sounds really good in, theory. And then the application, like growing sounds really good in theory, but it is not for the faint of heart, and it's not for the unprepared. Just because I can tell you that I went from my garage to this building with all these things in that many years, I probably should have put it on pause and let things level out. But I was so ready to make it to where once you hit a first million, your second million, it's hard to say like, all right, this is enough for right now. Let's go ahead and put the pieces together and really start honing what we're doing, making everything that we have quality. Instead, you're like, how can I get to the next million? And the reality is that most people aren't ready and may never be ready to go past $2 million. Mm-hmm. Some people shouldn't go past $2 million, $3 million. Well, like my own apprentice, he basically has taken over a lot of my customer base, and all he does is call and apologize to me now for all the things that he realizes what it takes. Yeah. And my advice to him was like, you should probably be a 3-man operation for maybe 5-6 years straight until you really have that nailed down, because it just gets more expensive the higher you go, unless you can go from here to here. This in the middle, when you're at that 3 million to 5 to 6, that's the most expensive you will ever be running a company, I think, in my experience anyway, because everything costs so much to get to that size. But if you aren't already having that money rolling in, it's so hard to maintain it. And you have a vehicle or 2 or 3. I had 3 vehicles go down, full engine, transmission swaps all in the same year. And that can wipe you out. And that's basically one of the times where I'm like, I don't really want to scratch it all back together again. Yeah. I'd rather go find a place that's solid where I can go and spend my career and hopefully bring up the next generation of plumbers and make real plumbers, like ones that are really well trained and are interested in learning on their own. And one of the things I tell them is like, everybody learns through an oral tradition. 90% of us, you get whatever the guy who taught you, and that's your law, that's your Bible. And then one of the things I tell them in the meeting is probably half those guys are wrong. And let me show you why. And so, because you take everything that the guy teaching you as gospel, well, the guy before him probably did the same thing. And then when you go and you take the things you think you know and you read the manual says, no, that is wrong. Yeah. Right on it. Yeah. And so I tell them, the time when I got in my career, when now I really started to question everything I learned, is when I really got to the next level. That's when you're really investing in yourself and you're ready to tear everything down you think and find out what's real and what's not.
Well, and you said something I think is really, really, in my opinion, important, and something that I can't stress enough. And that is, look, not everybody, like in today's world, you got a lot of young guns coming out and they're starting these businesses and they're growing them quickly. And they've never really suffered huge impacts and failures. And so they think that they are the second coming of a Lee Iacocca, right? Or a Jack Welch. And the reality is they've just been on a run. And a lot of them, when you get into their businesses, are struggling, but you never see that part. You never hear that part. And there is nothing wrong to own a business and be at 1.5 million, 2 million, 3 million, and just be at that point. And there are very successful businesses. You can go to 10 million and have 3% net profit, 5% net profit. You can be at 2 or 3 million and have 20, 22, 23% net profit. So it's sometimes we get impacted, I believe, by those around us and keeping up with the Joneses, so to speak.
Oh, yeah.
And we want to climb. And it is, if you're a competitive person, revenues and profitability are a scoreboard, right? But sometimes we have to realize the game we're playing, it's our game, right? We're competing with ourselves. And when we start competing with everybody else and what they're doing, sometimes we can get lost. And that range you're talking about, the business will take your wife, your kids. It will take your house. It will take, it will take your sobriety. It can take a lot of things from you, right? You've got to manage a lot of different things. And you know what? And I'm not saying that happens to everybody, but you just have to have perspective. And sometimes saying, hey, you know what? This is where I'm at. I've got a good life. I'm living a great life. I'm going to, I'm taking the vacations I want when I want. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, I've always been told that a business is a baby that never stops crying. And so I've found that to be so true. And the thing that you want to do is make sure you can get that baby to a teenager because every time you grow, it turns back into a baby. And then you start all over again, but at a different level. And I really kind of thought back, like, when was my profit margin the highest? And it was about 3 or 4 guys where I kept the most. But you have to be very disciplined on what you do with your money, because you usually don't have health insurance. You usually don't have a retirement plan. Mm-hmm. And to start those things yourself or with 3 or 4 people is so expensive that it's almost out of reach. So you may think, well, I'll build this company, I'll go which is what I was thinking, is I'll build it so big, so quick that I can just sell it and then go back to the problem is that when you do a valuation, the requirements to get you to the point where it's worth selling your company are gigantically bigger than you think they are. Yeah. You can buy a plumbing company right now for $40,000, full on plumbing company that's been there forever, and you're really only worth your customer list, so just being realistic with yourself. And do you really want to take that journey?
I always say you need to be able to disappear, and that company, they don't know where you are, but that company continues to grow in your absence, right? That's what brings value to a business. One of many things, but really that is going to bring you. That's what the big money comes from, right? I love the baby analogy. It goes back to that, in growth, there's this process. It's forming, storming, norming, performing, right? So every time you reach a new level of growth, or every time you introduce something new into your organization, you go through this whole process. It might be storming, forming, performing. But basically, you're starting over, right? And you have to come together and get it all together. And then you start performing. And then guess what? Everything's great. And then you get to that next level. You introduce seasonal lighting, right? Year-round lighting. You introduce lining on the plumbing. You introduce something, and man, that cycle starts over. Yep. And so, I think a lot of us can relate to always having a baby that never stops crying. All right. So before we wrap up, you shared with us some of the things and I think they were great takeaways that you would do differently. Mm-hmm. What advice do you have for somebody that's new, just getting into the trades, the kid out there that's been at it a couple weeks, couple months, maybe even a year or two, and those that are saying, okay, I want to get to that next level, and even the people, especially that are just having that tough day. I mean, I knew there were days when I was out in the field, I was just like, this sucks. I want to go drive for UPS, right? Nothing against UPS, but I want to get a truck that's loaded. I want a route that I can drive, because this is tough shit.
The sooner you get out of the clock puncher mentality, which is like, this is a job, I'm only doing things when I'm being paid to do them, I'm only going to do as much as I'm being paid to do. Those are the people that stall out. Like, you have to look at this as a career, so that when those hard days come, that's just part of the journey of your career. when those hard days come for clock punchers, that's the people that just fall out and quit because they're like, I can't deal with this over and over and over again. But when it's a career and you're committed to it, then you know that you're going to be tested probably in an extreme way before every next level. And usually that is what I call the universe's great test to see if you're even ready to go to the next level. Something bad always happens, or something difficult, or something unexpected. And once you can really start being honest with yourself and realizing, like, if I make it through this, then I'm definitely ready to go to this next place. But most people, they hit that turbulence, they hit that zone, and they realize, well, maybe this isn't for me. And that's the difference. So you have to be willing to commit on a level that you can think beyond your hardship, beyond this week, beyond 2 years, beyond 5 years. Because once you hit 10, 12 years in anything you decide to do, that's when you become part of that special club that really kind of gets to write their own ticket.
Yeah.
If they're really committed and you're not just waiting for someone to give you something.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Very well said. Very well said. Well, that wraps another episode of the Trepreneur Show. Very special guest, Andrew, OG. He is the OG of plumbing, and sharing with us a lot of his story and some takeaways, solid stuff. Tanya Priest co-hosting us right now at the Trepreneur Show. I'm your host, Patrick Somers. I also want to thank the entire team. There's this funny looking guy behind the camera. Actually, he's not. He's pretty cool dude. Doing, lights and sound. And then we've got our editor, and we've got, check the credits. You can see who they are. They're making things happen for us. We, all of us, truly support or truly appreciate any support you give us. The greatest support you can give us is listening to the podcast, sharing the podcast, and rating it and giving us a review. Truly appreciate any reviews. We want to keep this going. We're really having a lot of fun. The podcast, I'm getting great feedback on it. So let's help spread the word and get it to more people. Until next time, be great.